and welcome to Impact 2023, our continuing conversation where we talk about all different things, all different topics. We talk about current events, we talk about race, we talk about religion, we talk about anything basically that is on the interest and the minds of you. Uh, and so we ask, as always, we ask that you type your questions in your comments into the comment section so that you can participate in the process. This is not a one-way thing. This is a conversation, a continuing conversation, as we said. And so we encourage you to please type in how you feel. Type in your opinion. If I say something you don't like, type it. If I say something you like, type it. If you have some questions or any comments or some further thoughts, feel free to type it in. And so as always, we talk a little bit and we go right into our topics. Before we go into our topic, though, I want to discuss another state has done something weird when it comes to education, and that is Arkansas. They are trying to follow the lead of some other states and banning. 2 days before school started, they decided they wanted to ban. The governor decided that she would like to ban AP African American Studies. So the African American Studies that will give you college placement. And so they said that they were going to get rid of it. However, 6 school districts said, hey, we're not doing that. And so they're still going to teach it. Even though the governor said no, we didn't want it to happen. And so then their Department of Education or their State Department of Education then came back and said, y'all need to turn over all your documents. It has to do with that course so that they can comb through it and see if there's anything inappropriate. And that's concerning for a number of reasons, in the sense of, all right, Arkansas, one, you're just trying to copy everybody else. And then 2, you're trying to ban something and you're doing it sloppy. You're doing it right before school starts. So what's your agenda there? And then how come you're banning AP African American history, but you're not banning any other history? They have AP European history, and they didn't have any problem with that. And so then it comes to what's your true agenda there? And they said that that's because of their new laws that they had, trying to get rid of indoctrination of children and getting rid of anything that makes people feel bad in history. That somehow AP African American history was a violation, but the other AP courses or the other history courses, and we're highlighting, of course, AP European history as well, was not in the violation. And so we want to watch that. And kudos to the people down there in those 6 different districts who have decided that they're still going to teach. 6 different schools that are still going to teach AP African American history, and that they're still going to offer it. But yeah, you just have to be real cautious and conscious of what's going on and how it's spreading, and again, what our reaction will be, because reaction is always needed when they're trying to push back the advances that this country has made when it comes to race relations, the advances that we've made as Black and brown people as well. So I just wanted to make sure that I highlighted that before we talk to make sure I keep that, to make sure we keep that current and keep that top of mind. And if it comes to the same situation with Florida, where NAACP, other organizations decide that we need to stop going down there, then Arkansas will surely be on the list, and it'll surely be a place that we need not go. I don't know how many people are actually going to Arkansas to hang out and visit. Like, I don't know, Little Rock maybe. I don't know what they got. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure that we keep that on our radar. All right. There is a new app. I'm not going to say the name of the app because I don't want to give them undue advertisement or anything like that. But there's a new app that I know of that is here in Virginia. Oh, wait, hold on. We have a comment. We need to publicly call out governments and government officials who are racist. Good point. So Sarah Huckabee Sanders of Arkansas, the governor of Arkansas, is the one who has decided that she wants to put out this racist policy. But I'm saying that, but also that comment is really needed because when you do something that appears to be racist, then we need to call it out and you need to defend yourself. You need to either explain to us why it's not, why you think it's not, or you just need to be like, hey, it is what it is. That tell us that you are racist. Let us know. But we need to hold your feet to the fire in those situations. Like if you do something that appears to be racist, we need to make sure that you either, what do you have to say about it? You need to explain yourself. And I think that's what this comment is hitting on. I think that's exactly right. That is exactly right. We need to demand that from everyone. From everyone. All right, great comment. I mean, that was an excellent comment. All right, so there's a new app here in the Virginia area, and it's in other cities as well. And what this app is it connects people together with different opinions. So people from different religious groups, or people from different political backgrounds, or people from different socioeconomic statuses, people with different education levels. And the goal is to bring people together who are different so that they can have conversations about their similarities. And so there's no goal here per se of trying to change the person that you're talking to, trying to indoctrinate the person that you're talking to, trying to convince the person that you're talking to that their opinions are wrong or that they're different. It is, let's talk about some difficult topics, but let's see what we have in common. And so that's the goal. It's not a profit generating place. It's an app. It's an organization that is out here really trying to, I guess, based on their literature, just bring people together and do some positive change. And looking at it, I will tell you personally, I have mixed emotions. On the one hand, I sit back and I say, well, that's a great idea. People need to get together with one another and talk things out, even though we're different. And then on the other side, I am thinking, well, what good are we doing here? We're not talking about it. We're both going to talk about what we want to talk about, just so that we can see what similarities that we have. For what purpose? I'll give you a good example. If you were somebody who doesn't like Black people, and I am Black, and we have a conversation, and we find out that we both like mustard on our hot dog, that changes nothing about the fact that you don't like Black people, and the fact that you're pretty much my enemy because you're trying to, or because you're in the way of progression for people of color. So finding out what we have in common, finding out that you love your family and you want to take care of your family, does nothing to the effect of we're not on the same side. It would be at the end of the day. At the end of the day, you have a war and you have two soldiers who are fighting the war and on the opposite sides. And you sit them together and they talk and they hash it out and they have a good old time. But they're going to go right back to fighting the war. They didn't start the war, but they're on two different sides, and that's what it's going to do. They used to do that actually back in the day, way back in the day during holidays. And so if you were looking in this across different areas, even in as recent as World War I, during the Christmas holiday, they would stop fighting, and some of the soldiers would actually get together and celebrate together, and then they go back to killing each other after the holiday was over. So finding out that you have something in common, finding out that you have some similar goals in life doesn't change, for me, doesn't change what's going on. I'm bringing this topic up because we talked about, you were here last week and you were able to see what we talked about last week, which is an outstanding. One of the discussion topics was what's going on when we're talking about people who, we'll say people who have bad religion or Christianity that doesn't really fit with the Bible. And so we were talking about what's going on with them, and some of them having their minds poisoned or disillusioned and things like that. And the solution that was brought up is that you have to really get local with folk. You have to really get local, community-wise, and talk. And so this idea of bringing people together locally, this idea of having people who are opposite or on different sides of whatever spectrum and having them come together and talk is similar to the idea of what they're saying. If you have a church who you have one particular church and they're being taught one way, and they're being taught not the love, or they mean not to love, but they're being just taught not to care about other people, then the solution is to get them at the local level and have dialogue and kind of get together. And so this is an extension of that. Even though this isn't a church situation, this is just bringing people together all across the board where it has differences and trying to bring people together. I think it's a similar situation. But if the goal is just to talk, if the goal is just to find out that, that these people aren't these people have similarities to you, I don't know what it's going to be. Now, I do understand that for a group of folk, you hate people until you learn about them. I always think that those people are really bad. I should not have to know someone in your group or in your category to be able to care about them. Like that is, I don't know, that's problematic for me. But for a large number of people, that's the reality. One of the things that they talk about when they're talking about the different populations, where people were like, man, if people never experience a black people, like, well, you need to meet some black people to talk to them, and you'll realize that they're regular people just like you are. If you had to talk to black people to realize that's a really sad situation. They do the same thing with LGBTQ. You got to meet somebody who's gay, or meet somebody who's trans, and realize that they're regular people just like you are, and you shouldn't just be hating on them and whatever. If you had to do that again, that's sad. And it goes on across. You had to meet somebody from South America, or meet somebody from Central America who was trying to come here illegally or trying to come here legally, but you had bad ideas and bad thoughts about them, but you had to meet them and realize, oh, they're regular people. Again, that's sad. But I understand that there's a large group of people who have to have that kind of interaction. You don't care about anybody who you can't touch, see, hear, and hear, unfortunately. And for those people, I guess that local conversation is needed. But I think for those people, there's a bigger problem there in the sense of, you might not be a good person, and you really need to work on that. Because even after the fact, you can't meet everybody. You can't touch everybody. You can't do everything. So for only the people that you touch and that you see and that you hear of, those are only going to be the people that you care about, then that's problematic. You should care about the people that you see and don't see inside, Yeah. But that's to the localized comment. It almost sounds like the company may just be gathering data. How many people do we have in this category or that category? Do we have enough people who don't like other races to keep control? And that is, and again, that's one of the reasons I didn't want to point out what the company's name was or anything like that. I don't really know what their agenda is. I don't really know what they're trying to do. They could be just trying to attract people. They could just be a polling company. They could be an advertising company for all we know. And they're trying to just see, all right, what kind of commercials do we need to make? It could be any of that. So that's very real. But the concept of whether or not there is any value there for the people who are involved, I think that's whether the company does, is there value in the people who are involved? Is there value when we always talk about, all right, so there's value in conversations, there's value in talking to one another. But at the end of the day, if I'm talking to you and I think that you're wrong, I'm not talking to you to find out what our similarities are. I'm talking to you so that we can talk about those particular issues, so that we can come to an understanding of, am I wrong in my thought process with you? Are you wrong in your thought process with me? Are there some things that we don't understand about that process? but not that we need to just come together and have some kind of general understanding. I don't want to understand someone who sits back and has no care for immigrants, legal or illegal. Someone who is okay with when we had the policy of separating families at the border, taking kids away from their parents. Someone who is okay with that. We don't need to have a conversation about what kind of things are similar. We need to have a conversation about why are you doing the things that you're doing, and you need to understand how that is hurting people. And so that's where the conversation is. And the conversation on your side could be, well, I need to understand security risk and why you have to do what you have to do. But we're going to have a conversation of where there needs to be some understanding. And when we leave this conversation, either I realize that maybe what I'm thinking is not correct, or maybe you're thinking that what you're doing is not correct, or you've given me the information that I need in order to continue my fight against what you're doing. But there's no kumbaya moment in the sense of you can continue to be who you are and I just want to continue to be who I am and then we're okay. Like, I don't think that that space to navigate around each other and just be happy with other people is okay. You should be able to navigate around people who you disagree with, but talking to them shouldn't change that. If you're so disgusted at somebody else that you can't be around them, then talking to them and getting to know them shouldn't change that. I don't know. That's my opinion. But the value here, where we're going back to even the conversation about being able to change people's hearts and minds when it comes to the church and some of those ideas, and they're saying it's localized. Those conversations are needed, but I don't think those conversations can be, let's just talk to see where we're similar. I think those conversations have to come with, let's accomplish something. Let's see if we can come to a better understanding, both of us, a better understanding about what is right and what is wrong. Not, let me hear your side, you hear my side, and then we go our separate ways. I think that's pointless and a waste of time. The intellectual capacity of people currently in charge, government, is very, very limited. These people have a difficult time having meaningful and thoughtful discussions. They believe what they believe, and that's it. Yeah. And I think, and I'm a stickler for, the people in charge are caricatures for the most part. And this sounds horrible, but what they think and do, because they have power, is important. But what they think and do really doesn't matter, in the sense of what's important is the people who keep putting people in power. You only have power when people give you power. And so what I think the intellectual capacity of the people currently in charge, it is significantly diminished in certain places. When I look at Sarah Huckabee Sanders, as smart as she is, because she went to these schools and got degrees, and she used to work at the White House, as smart as she is, I think that her capacity to really be able to think things through is severely wanting. It's severely diminished. Her moral capacity is there. So she may be on a certain level intellectually bright, but because she didn't have any morals, I don't think that she can really understand the connection there. Just because you can read doesn't mean you can understand. And I think there's a lack of understanding of what's going on. However, it doesn't matter if people didn't put her in power. And so I think the conversation that we need to have is amongst regular people, regular individuals, and not to be worried as about putting caricatures in places. We need to put real people in places, and we're not always going to be right. So we need to be smart enough to not keep sending the same people into places when we know that they're not wise enough to get it done. I think the conversation and the conversions of people from being unthoughtful to thoughtful is at the individual level. It's not at the people in charge level. They're in charge, and they got in charge by being whatever kind of way that they are. So that's that's their brain, and that's where they're going to stay. And so converting them or changing them, or even having a conversation with them, is wasteful, because I do think, as the comment says, their intellectual capacity just isn't there. But I do think at the individual level, us people talking and people communicating, I think that we, for the most part, we're real people. We're not caricatures. We're not putting on a show for the world to see. So we should be able to have genuine conversations and come to understanding. Local level conversations. But and so again, what are we talking about here today? What we're talking about is a culmination of last week, which is we do need to have these conversations at a local level. Your church needs to talk to people at another church, who needs to talk to people at another church. And why? Because it seems like when we get so siloed that some of us can go down a really bad path. Because all we want to hear is what we want to hear. We can go down a real bad path. And there needs to be conversations amongst different groups to see, what are you doing? Why are you thinking that way? What are we doing? Why are we thinking that way? Are one of us off base? But not just talk to say, what do we got in common? That doesn't do anybody any good. I really don't think so. The capacity to regurgitate information does not mean a person has the capacity to think. That is absolutely what it is. My son just recently, and it's sad because that's the same problem we have at the adult level. It is plenty of people who can read. There's plenty of people who can read, but they can't comprehend. Like, they'll know what the words mean. They know what it says, but yet they can't comprehend. For some reason, for the life of me, I take it to the biblical level. For some reason, for the life of me, you read the Bible. I've met most. I mean, they can spit it out. For the life of me, those people, some of those people, sit back here and agree with policies when it comes to abusing people who are immigrants. People, and the Bible is clear as day what it says about how to treat an immigrant. Clear as day. Clear as day. Like, word for word, you can go in there. In many of the different versions that we have right now, the English versions right now, still clear. Where it's talking about treating them as our neighbor, where it says, how do you treat, depending on what version, how do you treat an illegal alien? How do you treat somebody who is not, from your area? So we're talking about people who have immigrated. It's clear as day, the story of Jesus and how his family had to run because they were in danger. So they had to leave their country or leave their area, just like people in other places are leaving their countries because they're in danger to try to come here. It's clear as day what the message says. And yet, those same people who know the Bible and can spit it out can't comprehend or refuse to comprehend that when you have policies against people today, against people who are doing the exact same things that they were, or similar things that they were when the Bible was written, or the times that are represented in the Bible, when you have policies that conflict with that, you're in the wrong. You need to get it. You're not following the word. And so people choose to do what they want to do when it comes to that comprehension. And I think that's the problem. But I think it needs to be addressed. I think it needs to be put back in people's faces. And again, it's not like I have all the answers or we have all the answers. That same conversation goes to me. So if somebody wants to sit back and have a conversation with me and say, look, what you believe or how you're practicing this particular part, or how you're living your lifestyle here isn't right. It's not consistent. Your thought process isn't consistent. Then that's the conversation we need to have. But I don't want to waste my time having a conversation with you where you're sitting back saying, what do we have in common? No, let's understand and let's all become a more a better understand how we should be doing. And so, one, I don't know what this company is because again, that was a great point that was made earlier about what this company, um, what their goals are, what they're doing. Um, but I do give them credit for the fact that they are bringing people together. But I want the understanding to be, or I would hope that people would be that coming together just to find out, you know, what we have in common isn't of value. If you have to find out that people have stuff in common with you in order just to be okay with them, to be in the same room with them, to like them, to give them the basic level of rights that they need to have, you have a bigger problem. And that should be clear. I mean, that should be really clear. Like if you have to meet people to understand that they're human beings, then you have the problem. And meeting people is not going to solve that because you can't meet enough people. You probably won't meet any Native Americans that live on a reservation. You probably won't meet any Alaskan natives. You're probably not going to meet them. And so, how are you going to care about them and their concerns if something happens? Because you didn't have a meeting, you didn't get to see them and talk to them in person. And so, how are you going to care about them? You're not going to be able to meet people in other countries who have problems and issues unless you go to those countries. And it's not enough time to hit every single country. So how are you going to care about people if something goes wrong in their lives? You're not even going to meet the people that live around the corner from you because you don't know them and you can't see them. But when they make policies or when we do things, let's say everybody, there's a group of people who go to the park or kids who go to a basketball court or a park or something like that, and we want to tear down their park. Well, I can't care about them because I never met them. And so that's where it becomes problematic. Like you're not going to meet everybody, but you should be able to care about people that you don't even know, that you've never even seen, because they're people. And again, if that is not where you are, if you have to meet people to care, you are the problem. And then you have a big problem. And that's a large amount of the population. Like I don't want to miss that part. That's a lot of people. The Southern Baptist Convention just dismissed 2 churches because they have female pastors. They were not willing to enter into any discussion. We have leaders today who feel what they believe is the total truth. Let's not forget those who believe that the world was round were put out of the church. Yeah. That's a good one. And that's good. And there is some controversy there because on a certain side of me, I do believe that each organization has the ability to make their rules. And when people come back and say, well, I want the rules to be different, sometimes I'm like, well, you should be able to stand firm. But sometimes people come and say, well, your rules should be different, and they have valid reasons for the rules. And so you look at the Southern Baptist Convention. On one hand, if they say, look, this is the way we're going to be, and you come in and saying, well, we're going to put some females in here as pastors, but you're violating the rules. You're supposed to ask us first. You didn't do it. Y'all got to get out. On the one hand, hey, man, you got to follow the rules. On the other hand, are those rules silly? Are they ridiculous? Are they put in place just because you want to be in control? Like, what's your reference? Why are you doing it? And so, yes, we have leaders today who are just stuck, whether they're stuck in tradition, whether they're stuck in their ways, or whether they want to be in control. We have leaders today who have some problems and need to be a little bit less, I think, I want to move a little bit more. So I definitely agree with that. I do think, again, that is controversial and a little bit controversial in the sense of we can't always have organizations where we have rules and then people come along and say, well, we want things to be different, and then we acquiesce. Because sometimes we have good reason, and rules are there for a good reason. In this situation, and in many situations, I think leaders have to really sit back and think about the good reason. Are there a good reason? Are you just sitting here saying that that's what the truth is, whatever I think? Or are you sitting back and taking an honest assessment and saying, Is there value here? Is there reason here? It goes back to the clothes debate that people had with what you should be wearing at different churches and things like that. What are you allowed to wear? There were dress codes and standards that a lot of churches had. And now some of those standards have gone away. Did they go away because we're blocking people? You're supposed to wear your Sunday best. Are we blocking people away from coming into church because of those rules? Are we helping or hurting? And so I think that's the conversation that we need to have. Are we having rules? What are the rules for? Are they helping or hurting? Is changing our clothes going to do something where it keeps us separated from God? Is it going to be a distraction? Some of that might be true. But are the rules that we have keeping people away and we need to change them a little bit? Should we have some more flexibility there? Is not having women in pastoral positions doing what? What's the problem? Are we helping or are we hurting? If there are women who are bringing people to Christ in a pastoral role and they want to take on that huge responsibility of being over a flock, should we say no just because that was the rule that we just established? Or if they're going to pastor the people anyway in an unofficial way, why not go ahead and allow them? So that conversation and those thought processes need to happen. I think leaders need to be a little bit more flexible sometimes. Some people just don't like to be wrong. That sometimes people just get stubborn. We get stuck in our ways and we can't admit when we're wrong. That is what we have here that's being taught to young people from politicians and strong men, as they say, from our political leaders, from our government officials, is that you never apologize. You never say that you're wrong. You always just pivot. And that used to be taught that you don't trust the person you can't admit when they're wrong. That admitting that you're wrong is the ability to be able to then move and pivot. But now it's being valued. And so we got to be very careful who we put in places of visibility for our young kids. Because, that is it. Some people don't like to be wrong, and now they're teaching like that's the right way. And that is the complete wrong way. All of us are wrong. All of us are wrong at some point in time. And we should be able to learn from our wrongs. It used to be a big thing in business. Like being able to, it was like failing and learning from your failure. And that was like you got to learn to fail. And that was the big thing, big push. And now it seems like, all right, just even if you are wrong, just keep going. Never apologize. Never stop. Never change. Just stay stuck in your ways, because you look weak if you apologize, or you look weak if you're wrong. People might think you're incompetent if you're wrong. I don't think that's right. And so, we that's what it is. Some people don't like to be wrong, and so they're stuck in their ways. And I think that is a problem that we get to. And maybe that's why we need to have these conversations, so that we can kind of break down the fact that, hey, it's okay to be wrong. And if you're wrong, it's better to switch it up and be right. All right. I think we were kind of all over the place a little bit on this one, but I just wanted to make sure that we understand that, and we have to talk about that local level conversations that we need to be having, because it's been a constant drumbeat that is the solution to some of this ridiculousness we have with different people having different opinions, so much different opinions in the church. And the fact that that's having so much harm on the church populations is pushing people away. It is a part of what's pushing people away. The ridiculous people who are the loudest, who are misrepresenting the church. All right. We're past our time, but thank you everyone for comments. Thank you for participating and being here. As always, we encourage people on Thursdays, 7 o'clock. Same place, YouTube and Facebook. We have Thursday weekly Bible study. It's amazing. So make sure that you etch out some time to either watch it live or watch it when you can. And on Sundays, we have worship service here, 10 o'clock. Same place, Facebook and YouTube, and live and in person if you are in the area. Please feel free to come by. All right. Thank you. Thank you everybody for participating. And as always, we'll be here next week. And have a good one.